Hello, welcome to TerreScience. It's a pleasure to have the mayor of Manteca, Gary Singh, with us on the podcast. And we are going to talk about growth of Manteca. Manteca is centrally located close to the Bay Area. It's not too far from Sacramento, not far from San Francisco. It's a very fast growing city, and it's lots of work for the mayor, as you can imagine, in a city that's growing really fast. Lots of people are moving in. There is lots of infrastructure, many things that need to be considered as the city grows. So I'm just excited to have this discussion to hear about all the plans for Manteca. So welcome to TerreScience, Gary.
All right. Thank you, Rajnish. I really appreciate you guys having me here today. And we got a lot of stuff going on in Manteca, and I guess I'll be hopefully sharing a lot of that information with you guys today. So I guess if we're ready to go, we'll go right into it.
Sounds good. We are ready to go.
Yep. All right. So Manteca, as you just said and highlighted, that it's in the Central Valley. We are growing tremendously, especially a big influence from the Bay Area. Unfortunately, we are the affordable housing of the Bay. And so that has brought a big growth spurt to the Central Valley, and Manteca being one of the closer cities other than Tracy or Lathrop, and now the newest city in the county, which is Mountain House. We are pretty much the next one in line. We've talked about in the past about things like Great Wolf and other things that were venues that were coming in. So I thought I'd come back and share some other stuff that's going on and some of the needs that are happening in the city too. Kind of keep the city afloat and moving into the right direction into the future. Okay, so I think what I'll start with is just kind of the makeup of our council and how that has changed. Since I became mayor, and now we are in the midst of another election season. So one of the things that's going to change for our city, and we're probably one of the few in our area that have already done this, is that our city has gone into districts. And so now where there's district elections, there's currently 4 districts in the city, and then the mayor is citywide. So everyone's problem is my problem. So District 1, which kind of represents the west side of Manteca, and the south side is represented by Councilmember Charlie Halford. District 2 is kind of the south and east side of town. That's represented currently by Councilmember Nuno. District 3 is kind of the middle of Manteca. It's the center of it, and that's just represented by Councilmember David Bright. And then the north side, kind of Louise Avenue North, is currently by Councilmember Mike Morwitt. So this election season in 2024, District 1 and 2 are up for re-election. District 1, Charlie Halford, actually no one's running against him. So hopefully he'll be winning, I hope, when he's the only one on the ballot. And then District 2, which is Councilmember Jose Nuno, he's no longer running, so that seat is going to be vacant. So there actually is 3 opponents that are running on that seat. So in a little bit less than a month, I guess we'll find out soon here what happens with that district. So that's right. Kind of what's going on with as far as the politics side of Manteca. So what will be interesting is by this November, when that is done, we will now have complete districts, and every council member will have a district, and then that's how our city will be moving forward. No more citywide council members. So, which I think is actually a really good thing that we did, is because one, I think it gives the ability for individuals to run in districts that may not be able to raise the money that they could do before to run for the whole city. I think it brings more diversity into the council. And then it also helps the residents because now they have someone to go to within their district that's, is a neighbor and understands what their maybe issues are within that district or neighborhood. So it'll be interesting. And I think, there's a lot of other cities that are maybe thinking about this or haven't gone there yet, or maybe have even been forced to go into districts because of diversity issues. So
So,
that's
can I quickly ask a question? Is this something that you initiated, or was it already in the
yeah.
works?
So this is something
Yeah,
we brought up as a
yeah,
council. We really were trying to. Uh, there was that one time when I got on the council where uh, three of the individuals on the council all lived in one neighborhood
oh,
in the whole city,
yeah,
and so I, even though they were good, I don't didn't feel that was an equal representation of the whole city.
yeah.
So that's kind of how we went into that and making
Okay,
sure that it provides some diversity on the
right.
council, and also not just, you know, diversity in, maybe color or gender or race, but more of also just economically
Hmm.
where the different parts of the city are also represented on the council.
Yeah,
So very unique thing. Um, the next thing I think we'll talk about is the general plan. I'm not sure if you are aware of the general plan, but general plan is kind of a snapshot of what the city is looking at to do in the next, say, 20 years. So up to 2043. We just passed our general plan this past summer. One of the things that came out of that, that you may have seen the news in Manteca, is that there were some issues as far as the developments on the north side of our city. What we came out of that was that we actually started looking at that, and you'll see this in a little bit later when I talk about it, but we have been kind of one sided in the city, and we've been only talking about residential growth,
hmm,
and kind of relying on residential growth and property taxes to basically keep the city going. And we're trying to make now that transition and not just rely on residential growth, but also look at commercial and industrial growth, to be more sustainable as a city and economically. So that's some of the transitions we did with the general plan, is that we allocated more land for commercial and industrial, also pushed it kind of north away from the residential, and also gave them a dedicated uh, star route, truck route. So that way, those trucks or any of that kind of
Great.
use would not be
Hmm.
coming through our residential areas or areas that are needed. Um, that probably is not the right impact. So with that, we will create your dedicated east-west route coming through the city, which is Roth Road currently, which will be extended and connected to 99. And so the
Okay.
Roth Road will become a connection between 99 and Highway 5. And then with our new McKinley interchange, we are also creating a route from Lathrop to McKinley, over the Great Separation in Lathrop, and then connecting to McKinley there all the way to 120. And that'll become your new north south route for trucks. So they no longer will need to go through the city's residential areas. And so we kind
That's
of put,
great. It's really nice that the city is actually kind of enveloped with freeways or highways that allow this kind of separation already. So
yeah, no.
it's
So,
yeah,
and that's
that's good.
unfortunately before what we thought was the outside areas, like airport. At one time, we thought, yeah, we're going to run truck traffic through airport or Lathrop Road, which sounded great probably 30, 40 years ago, 50 years ago. But since then, a lot of residential development has come in those corridors.
Uh,
And unfortunately, it's probably not the best route. So now I think we have not only pushed those routes further away from that, but we have also done the right thing as far as the general plan and dedicated land uses to make sure that no residential can go there in the future.
okay,
So
great.
that's another big transition in our city to get away from residential and also understanding uses next to each other.
Hmm.
The other big thing I think we can talk about, and you're probably very familiar, is our downtown.
Yeah.
So downtown has been talked about. I feel like every election, somebody always has an idea about downtown and what can be done, and everybody wants our downtown to potentially look like, say, Lodi or Livermore, and so I think I'm happy to announce that one of the things that we have done is we actually created a downtown facility district, which is called a PBED.
Hmm.
It's kind of like an HOA for our downtown. What will happen? What's happening already? We finally got all the votes in, and it passed about 2 months ago. What that has allowed to do is now each property owner within our downtown business district will pay a property fee that
Mhm.
will go into a separate account for the downtown. So not only will businesses, property owners will pay, but including in that will be also property owner, which is the city. So the
Right.
city will also be paying into that fund, and now it gives you a dedicated fund for downtown. So
That's
that is
great.
going to be awesome. And then we also have now created a board of
Mhm.
downtown business owners and property owners. And that board is the one that will decide what to do with that money. So
Mhm.
I've kind of taken it out of the hands of the politicians and who's elected and if money is going to be there. Now that money is going to be decided by downtown business owners or property owners, and it's dedicated automatically through the property taxes. So that board has been
Great.
created now, and that board is going to start working. They should get their first staunch of money, hopefully Q1, Q2 actually of next year. So
Okay. That's, I think, really exciting for people in Manteca because as a resident here as well, I can see that there is a need for some uplifting of structures and also diversity of businesses and services. Downtown can really become quite vibrant here.
yeah, because now you're leaving it up to the individuals that
Mhm.
own and also, do business in downtown to decide what they want to add more. I've basically taken the power and put it into the people. So, now they
Mhm.
can decide what is best for downtown. May it be they want extra security. Maybe they want to do some beautification. Maybe they want to do some kind of a program for tenant improvements into a building. I mean, we're all looking for restaurants and different things in our
Mhm.
downtown. Maybe they want to help a potential business come in to put in your hood and grease trap and those kind of things that are usually sometimes the issues for getting in for businesses, especially in older buildings. Those are all
Right.
things that could be added in. Same thing with doing different events.
Yeah.
So this local board, nonprofit board, will be able to make those decisions and use the money as they see fit for downtown.
That's great. I think and adding some community programs, community
Correct.
facilities, and yeah, I
Yeah.
think it
So the
sounds
other
good.
thing, there's things coming. Obviously, we've Deaf Puppy Comedy Club. That was a new thing that came into downtown. Chris Teixeira, a local individual that grew up here and went to school here, has brought in a comedy club slash restaurant into downtown. We're one probably the only comedy clubs in the area in the valley.
Mhm.
So it's a very unique thing coming. Um, I'm pretty sure you know about another item that's coming into our downtown that we're looking at on Center Street next to the tennis courts. So I think that's going to be a great project as far as a community garden. So I think you're probably pretty excited about that.
Yeah, we are. As a person who's been working with plants and interested in improving access to local food and nutritious food, I think having a community garden at multiple locations, starting with that one, and connecting with local restaurants so that they can source freshly grown produce, educational programs for students of all ages, and including college students have opportunities to use their social hours and internships. I think it's a really exciting opportunity if it comes to fruition. Of course, there are many things to go through, but absolutely, I'm very excited. I'm along with my colleague Sarah Miller. She's the president of the Urban Green Project, the non-profit uh, organization that we started. So we really look forward to working with you and and the city in making this happen.
Yeah, no, we're excited to partner with you guys. I think we first gotten through the big hurdle, which was figuring out a location and a spot. So we at
Right.
least have the land.
Yes. Yes.
I think I think there's a great opportunity, especially with what we're trying to do with downtown and what could also happen around you. And there's some room
Mhm.
for expansion there also. So I think it could turn into a very nice place. And it could be an educational opportunity just being right across
Yes.
from the library also.
Yes. Yeah. So I think it's a really good fit. This location. We are excited.
Yeah,
Thank
so
you.
so great things happening in our downtown already. Another thing I think we may you may have heard about is on the corner of Sycamore and Yosemite. There's that empty lot that's been there forever. There's this wall that sits there with nothing, no ceiling. It's just a wall that's been there for, I want to say, 40 plus years. So the city had actually bought that land about 3 years ago. So right now, what we're doing is we're actually working with the housing authority, and they're right now applying for some grants from the state of California. And what they proposed actually is a 4-story building, with the first floor where they're going to put parking on the first floor plus some commercial, and then they're going to put 4 stories of affordable senior housing upstairs.
Oh, okay.
So that's actually another great, and it's going to really change the look of what our downtown is, and having a building like that in our downtown. So I think it's going to be awesome because one of the other things that I had really pushed for and we accomplished was increasing the height limits in our
Hmm.
downtown and looking at trying to do some vertical integration building and not just the sprawl that we're used to in the valley. So I think that that's going to be a great project if we can get it through and really show what can potentially happen to a piece of land that can be revitalized and build something completely different that was never there.
Wow. That all of that sounds really, really good. Um, yeah. So looks like these changes may actually start to happen even starting next year.
Yeah, I
Right.
think you're going to see
Yeah.
those sooner than later. One other
Mhm.
big one I always want to approach is public transportation and transit.
Mhm.
So the other thing, we have some plans, and I think you'll put it up here shortly, but there's some plans about updating our transit center,
Uh-huh.
that's already there on Moffett. So I think by the end of next year, if all goes to plan, we will get an ACE station right there, and ACE will
Oh,
actually stop there. So our
great.
transit center is there. Unfortunately, there's no train that stops there currently,
Hmm.
and but some of the questions always been, hey, why'd they build this place if there was no train transit going? Currently, it's just a bus stop, but that was federal funding that built that
Hmm.
project. So either we were going to build it or lose it. That's what ended up building that transit center. Now ACE has put in plans in our city development department where they're looking at expanding that station, expanding all the parking. They've been working hard the last 3 to 4 years, buying up all the land on Moffett, all the way down almost to the VFW. And
Hmm.
with that, they're going to increase the parking, and then they're going to be putting a bridge over the railroad tracks where you will be able to get on the train on both sides once the train does stop in our downtown. And so that will become our Manteca A station.
That is really good. I didn't actually know about that because I've lived in Livermore before and Tracy, and both have ACE stations, and I commute to Stanford, and I used to take the ACE train. Especially people who commute. This is really an excellent news for them because ACE is convenient, connects the Bay Area to Manteca, brings people to downtown, and also potentially connects to Great Wolf Lodge because
Correct. Yeah,
the
so
yeah,
the new plans with the ACE is going to be where they're going to actually double track
uh-huh.
in through this whole area, because then that will allow them to run 8 trains a day. So they will
Okay.
actually quadruple in what they're right now. They currently just run a morning and an evening. So that's been always the issue a lot of times with individuals taking ACE train, because if you miss the train, you
Mhm.
can't make it back. So
Right.
that's one good thing now, is that they'll be able to expand their service. They're going to be building another line coming through here, where this line is eventually, the one that's going to stop in our downtown is going to stop also in Ripon,
Mhm.
Modesto, Ceres, and then it will also stop in Turlock and Merced. So this could be an opportunity for individuals to go to MJC, go to
Mhm.
Stanislaus State, and also go to Merced University. The idea
Mhm.
is to eventually have this all the way down, and if they ever finish the high speed rail,
Right.
connect connect ACE
Mhm.
to that on that side. And then they're going to be putting another station at Sharp Depot in Lathrop,
Oh,
and
okay.
that will become your connection point to get onto the other rail line and take ACE to the Bay Area, or also
Mhm.
take it all the way to Sacramento. And so
Wow.
that's what's happening along with this whole ACE corridor that we're looking at. So they're shooting for end of 25 or 26 when they will get this thing
Oh,
going.
okay. That's really good because one of the biggest issues with growth is congestion of traffic, and having public transportation connecting long range distances is really important. That's
Yeah,
great.
it's a
Yeah.
two-way road, so we
Yeah.
always look at you've seen some of the projects with 99
Mhm.
120 expansion. So
Yeah.
we're kind of talking about expansion of, our highways, freeways for the traffic that's currently there. But then we're also at the same time looking at how we can take some of those cars off of our
Right. Yeah.
unfortunate highways that are congested and get those people onto public transportation
Mhm.
and get those people to their job centers. So very exciting news, and
Yeah.
I'm can't wait for it to open sooner than later.
Yeah. Yeah. That's great.
So another vision, and just finishing off downtown, is the VFW, where VFW is today.
Mhm.
I was able to work with our Congressman Josh Harder in his office, and we were able to actually get some funding from the federal government. Uh, the vision I see right now is that where our VFW hall is, there's some vacant land on the other side of it, and the idea is to take our American Legion Hall that we have in downtown and actually build them a new facility over there next to the VFW. So you would have VFW on one side, American Legion on the other, and then we would turn the
Mhm.
middle into kind of like a Veterans Plaza. And
Okay.
so
Yeah.
we'd have that cohesiveness between both of the veterans organizations together on Moffett, and that will kind of help us finish the revitalization that we've been doing on Moffett in
Mhm.
Manteca. Going with ACE on the front end all the way down to the back end, and then eventually Moffett being that connection that ends you where you can actually go into right into 99 with the new
Right.
Austin Road Bridge and 99 120 update. So that's another big one. Harder's office was able to get us an $850,000 grant for the American Legion Hall that will kind of kickstart that program and get that going.
Great. Great. Wow. Those are significant developments and changes
Yeah,
coming to
that's
downtown.
all in a
That's
year.
yeah. That's pretty impressive. Yeah. That's great.
So the next one is I think I want to talk about a little bit is the family entertainment zone. I know we've talked about it before. That's that area by Big League Dreams, Great Wolf Lodge. So the city owns about 130 acres out there. We have an economic development two by committee that me and Councilmember Morwitz serve on, and we actually actively are looking to bring some entertainment, more venues there. The concept that you'll see here is that you have kind of like a man-made lake, and then restaurants going around there. One of my other big goals with it is I would like to build a 10,000 seat amphitheater,
Mhm.
so you can do outdoor venues there. And then we're looking at multi-purpose turf fields, so which will kind of bring your soccer and baseball and different sports out to that whole area and kind of turn it into a complete, what it's called, a family entertainment zone. So that will bring not only future tax revenue for the city, but at the same time also bring families together and have things to do and places for them to actually spend their money in Manteca.
No,
And
it's that's really great. One thing that I think you and I have discussed also, there is a lack of really good experiential, hands-on type of children's museum. STEM type. I don't know if that fits there as well, but it's just
that could
something to think about.
definitely. I
Yeah.
think, potentially if we look at a future aquatic center, other types of venues there, I think you can actually go right in place and have a facility right next to Great Wolf Lodge and those areas.
Yeah. Great.
So definitely. So great things coming there. I think there's a good opportunity for mixed use hospitality, of course, that can come in there and bringing maybe future conferences to Manteca.
Yeah.
We are very centrally located, and I think it could be a great venue.
That's great. Lots of changes. Good one.
Yes.
That's
The
great.
other one is the Promenade. I know we've talked about this
Mhm.
before, and that's the Bass Pro Shopping Center. And,
Right.
that's been kind of a thorn in our side where people have asked, why do we have all these empty shops there and why is nobody doing anything about it? And I know we've talked before, and unfortunately, one of the issues has been with that is that we had an owner that decided they were going to take it as a tax write off and not fill those locations.
Oh, yeah.
And so I'm happy to announce now that the great thing is that shopping center has been sold,
Mhm.
and we have new owners. They're local. They're actually out of Stockton. They're very motivated to start doing some things and getting some updates and filling some of those storefronts. And
Yeah.
so I think we're going to start seeing some news coming there soon. One of the big things that already is happening there is um, I got connected with the CEO of Sutter, and
Mhm.
they ended up taking about 17,000 square feet of those empty buildings next to J.C. Penney, and they're going to be
Okay.
bringing Sutter Health into our community.
Oh, great.
So we will
Yeah.
actually get a third, other than Doctors Hospital and Kaiser,
Yeah.
choice for your health services. So they're going to bring in complete doctors' offices, imaging, a lab. All of the ancillary services are all going to be in house there. So they're actually doing TIs right now, and they're going to be
Okay.
opening up Q1 of next year. So
Wow.
that's
That's pretty
more great
soon.
news
Yeah.
there.
Yeah. That's excellent.
So
Yeah. Cool.
another one, Atherton Airport, right on the other side of the Costco area and that shopping center is we're bringing in a brand new shopping center that's opening up there. So a lot of you'll see this is a lot of commercial stuff that
Mhm.
I've really been pushing for ever since I became mayor. Um, and you might not be excited about this, but we actually are going to be getting our second Chick-fil-A in town. It's coming there on the corner of Atherton and Airport. And the reason I'm excited about it is that it's going to help release some of the traffic from the first one. And
Okay. Yeah.
so that's always been, unfortunately, a mess there. And so having the second one, and we made sure they're actually going to have three drive-throughs,
Uh-huh.
and they should have enough stacking for about 50 cars all on
Oh,
site.
wow.
So we made
That's
sure it
big.
was
Yeah.
more than big enough this time
Yeah.
around.
That,
But
that's a lot
so
of chicken to go around.
a lot of chicken going around. So yes, we're going to be getting a Chick-fil-A there, and another Dutch Brothers is coming, and a lot of other businesses like a Mountain Mike's Pizza. There's a Minchie's frozen yogurt. So a lot of interesting. There's supposed to be a Mediterranean restaurant. Also looking
Okay.
at that facility there. So we're definitely trying to bring some more options for our city, not the same old, same old.
Yeah, so I have a question. This is something, I don't know the answer to, and I've always wondered because, as a growing city, like you mentioned, there are chains and there are businesses like Chick-fil-A and Dutch Brothers, and they will come because there is already population and they can probably afford to come to take the risk. But if you want a downtown and some areas which are more like, let's say, other downtowns that we like Livermore or Lodi, there are more individual or independent mom and pop, and those kinds of businesses that put in a lot of variation and foods and all these things come in. Is that just a process, or is it challenging to get them in because the risk is too high?
Yeah, so that's why I think kind of what we were talking about earlier. I think you're going to create kind of a two towns. So you're
Uh-huh.
going to have the new downtown, new areas with what
Yeah.
you talked about around Great Wolf Lodge and these
Yeah.
areas on that side, and then you'll kind of have the old town like Sacramento does.
Hmm.
And that's
Okay.
why I think doing the downtown business district and all of that, we will have create those facilities and give those options where we can bring in the mom and pops of the ones
Right.
that are and then trying to get rid of some of those hurdles that they have to get
Hmm.
into business and with some grant opportunities and things like that. So that's where I think a lot of that will happen, where we can look at some of those buildings and kind of really make that walkable community in our downtowns and allow some locals to go into those buildings. One of the issues you see, unfortunately, with these new shopping centers, again, the city doesn't own them. Those are all privately owned. But these
Hmm.
big companies that come in, or even the property developers, they're unfortunately always looking for, corporate clients
Yeah.
because
Right.
they can weather some storms easier
Yes.
than some of our locals. Unfortunately, if a COVID happens, or
Yeah.
if if there's some transitions in the economy, those leases are backed up, even if they're not available, as much as where a mom and pop, unfortunately, will not be able to,
Right.
you know, stay. So that's why they always prefer franchises, and
Hmm.
before they will lease to, unfortunately, a mom and pop.
Right. Okay. That makes sense.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's business.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
um, I think another thing we can talk about before we go is the homelessness. I think that's a
Uh-huh.
topic that we always have discussed. We've talked about it before, about the idea of our navigation center. We've made some progress with that. We, at our current site on 555 Industrial, we now have dorms
Hmm.
available. So we have two dorms that we've purchased with grant money, and one is for all males, 25 males in one, and then we have an all female 25. So we have capacity up to 50 individuals
Okay.
that can stay the night now at our facility. So we offer overnight stays, restroom, daily showers, meals. There's on-site 24/7 security. The other thing that we do also is we also accept, there's kennels for your pets, so
Hmm.
they can also stay on site. And then we have now worked with other companies and individuals that are coming in to provide case management, drug rehabilitation, and medical services on
Oh,
site too.
great.
So that's all.
Services as well. Yeah.
So yeah, we're trying to bring
Hmm.
in all those wraparound services and bring it all on
Okay.
site. So that's the really, my goal with that is that now, our on the other side, our law enforcement is now starting to go out there, which was kind of the goal originally when we were looking at a navigation center. Is that we've allowed them to now start pushing a lot of the individuals that are staying on our streets and saying, "Hey, we have a facility for you. You actually can stay there." And that's going to help us kind of nudge a little bit now, where we can't say, "You can't just sit here now. You
Right.
either need to move, or or you have a facility to go." And so that's helped in that aspect to start cleaning it up a little bit around town.
That's great. So the the navigation center gives a vision that it is navigating or helping them move on. So what happens after the one night, or where do they go from there? Are there other
Yes, it's not
facilities where
just
they
a
go?
one night thing. They get to stay
Yeah.
there. There's no
Uh-huh.
questions asked until, but while they're on site, they cannot, drink and drugs, and there's nothing,
Right.
they have to stay clean. The
Hmm.
idea is for them to, some of them, they just need their driver license. They need a mailing
Hmm.
place.
Right.
There's actually even a facility there. I don't know if you've been there, but there's a bus that they converted into a big closet, so you
Okay.
can donate your clothes and things like that there too. But they we try to get them connected with companies that would like to hire, and they do
Great.
interviews. And so
Okay.
the
Yeah.
idea is for not for them to stay there, but the goal is for them to eventually become independent,
Right.
and then not actually be an issue for our community, but be a positive community member where they are self resilient at that
Yeah,
point.
that's exactly what I was getting at, because in the past, we've heard stories where this problem is just transferred to another city rather than taking care of it. So you're actually
No, so we
building
are taking
something.
care of
Yeah,
our own. And so
yeah,
the next
yeah,
phase of that, if you remember the property that we purchased on Main Street and Carnegie
yeah.
Court, is to
Hmm.
build the transitional housing and the affordable housing on site.
Right.
So that way, when you do get a job, you
Mhm.
maybe you don't have enough money yet to purchase market rate, but we will build your affordable housing, transitional housing on site, where you have the next step to go once you're out of the navigation center, so you don't end
Mhm.
up back on the streets, and
Right.
eventually you become independent. That's the goal. And so
Yeah.
there's a whole step process going from beginning to end. And then the other side, if we do have these facilities, now there's no reason for you to be staying out there on the street unless that's the lifestyle you want. And if that's the lifestyle you want, that's unfortunately when law enforcement has to do their job, because it's not good
Yeah.
enough to just stay there.
Yeah, but you're also, there'll also be opportunities with all the businesses and all the development in downtown. I think they'll open up job opportunities,
Correct.
which will also connect with this. So it's that's the
Yeah, we're trying to
advantage.
make it a full
Yeah,
circle,
yeah,
so that there's no, uh, if they're not taking the opportunity, it's because they don't want to. It's not that it's not available.
yeah, right, yeah,
So that's definitely one of the things that we've transitioned into. One of the other things we've done also is that we've now passed a no trespassing loitering ordinance for private
mhm,
property. So these
okay,
are for your shopping centers and other places. There's signage that you can purchase, and you can put them up into your common area areas in shopping centers. And that allows our law enforcement to now actually come and enforce loitering or trespassing without actually you, the owner or the property manager, being there. And the goal with that is, again, is that we're not trying to make it tough. The first thing when they do unfortunately cite them is that the first thing they do is they offer them the services at the navigation center.
uh-huh,
If the
yeah,
individual does not want to take them or not do anything and continue to, break the rules, then that's the next step. But so
yeah,
there's that side of it for private property. The other thing I think that I always like to and let individuals know is that you can no longer just please. We have a facility. Um, if you want to donate there.
yeah,
Don't give these individuals money or whatever you want to give them when they're out on the streets, out on the corners, or out in front of businesses, because at that point you're not allowing them to. They need to face some type of hardship so they can actually get off the street and go to our facility. Otherwise, there's no reason for them to ever leave the streets. And
yeah. I mean, it requires a change in habit, and now the word navigation makes sense. We're really kind of directing them, navigating them off the street into facilities where they can get help.
correct.
Yeah,
And
so
otherwise they're just going to continue staying there.
yeah,
And then the problem with it is that one, they are homeless, so all the stuff that you may be giving them, they can only take so much with them, and the
yeah,
rest unfortunately ends up as being garbage all around
right.
town. And so you may think you're helping them, but you're actually honestly probably not helping them and adding to some of our issues that we face throughout the city.
So, if people do want to donate to Navigation Center, they can go to the city website and find a way to do that.
Yeah, they could do that, or
Mm.
they can just come. The
Okay.
navigation center is open until 6 o'clock every day.
Mhm.
They can just come to the site. And they're saying they're here, there to donate. Maybe it's food. Maybe one of the things they're always looking for is a lot of our issues is single males. And
Yeah.
now that we're trying to get them transitioning into getting jobs, they're always looking for male clothing, especially old suits or jackets and things
Mhm.
like that when they need them for their interviews.
Yeah.
So if any of the individuals that are viewers that are watching, you have any old clothes or male clothes, and that you don't need anymore, don't wear anymore, or don't fit into, I think would be perfect ones to go ahead and donate at our navigation
Great.
center.
Yeah. That's great. Okay.
So now I'm going to kind of transition into the state of the city and what's going on in that aspect. I think we
Hmm.
can talk about that a little bit.
Sure.
And then I know we've talked about a potential tax measure that's on the
Mhm.
ballot, but I'm going to not just talk about the tax measure. I want to kind of talk about how we got there and what's been going on.
Okay.
So I'll start with the first thing is that it's called a property tax share agreement.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, I think the last time we talked about this a little bit, but we've made some progress. So, if for the viewers that are not familiar with this, is that our city has been for maybe the last 40, 50 years, been in a property tax share agreement with our county. So this is if you look at your property taxes, there's Melrose and there's other line item fees there that go directly to the agencies that represent.
Mhm.
So maybe it be the school district, mosquito abatement, or whatever it is. But then your Prop 13 tax that's on there, that after the state gets their share, everybody gets their share. The remaining share, we're in an agreement with our county on an 80-20 split. So
Mm-hmm.
what that meant was that 80% of your property taxes actually were going to the county, and only 20% were coming to the city of Manteca. And with those 20%, um, I'm here, I have to provide all those general fund services to our residents.
Right.
So, 71% of our general fund currently is just public safety, police and fire. So,
Yeah.
so that 80-20 split, I think if you kind of look at a lot of the development that's come in the city the last 20, 30 years, um, especially if you look at all the south side of 120, all that's been sitting around at 80-20 split. And if you could imagine, if that could have been changed earlier, how much money is pretty much left on the table currently.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
so I kind of made that a mission if you remember when I was running for mayor, that I'm going to try to get this thing changed. And so I'm happy to say about 7 months ago, we did get it changed. And so moving forward, we are now no longer 80-20. We are 60-40 now. I went in at 50-50, but
Yeah.
I settled at 60-40. So the county still gets 60, but we get 40% now.
But it doubled from 20
Yeah.
to 40. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's
So,
great. We've doubled now our income for few developments.
mhm.
But the only issue with that is unfortunate is that I cannot go retroactively. So anything that's already built or already approved and already annexed into the city, unfortunately, is still at 80-20. So
Okay.
that always comes to differ that whole idea about bringing development. Do we stop development and just keep the ones we have? But unfortunately, most of that money is going to the county and not coming to the city. Or do we bring in more development that now will be coming in at 60-40?
Mm-hmm.
So
Okay.
that's always the hard part when it comes to figuring that out. So yes, the good news is we're 60-40. The bad news is that I cannot unfortunately change the old agreements in our
Mm-hmm.
city that are still at 80-20. Unfortunately, there's even the middle parts of Manteca that are really older. Those are on 90-10.
Oh, yeah.
And so people say, yeah, we pay a lot of taxes, but unfortunately, they don't come to the city of Manteca. So that's another thing. The other thing is CFDs. I don't know if you're familiar with those, but it's similar to kind of with those mellow roofs on your property taxes.
Mm-hmm.
So the only CFD, there's a bunch of them on there that you will see. That's a lot of them are go to the school district. Um, there's only one fee on there that actually pays to the city of Manteca CFD. That CFD only paid for two things for all these years, and that was just for parks, the neighborhood park, and streetlights.
Okay.
So I just told you earlier that 71% of our budget is police and fire, and we never
Mm-hmm.
collected any growth fees, CFDs, for our largest expense. So our largest expense is police, fire, and streets, and we never collected anything from all of that growth. So that's
Yeah.
one of the issues that why our police station was built in 1975, why we don't have enough officers, why your streets look the way they do, um, because we've left, again, a lot of money on the table. So,
So, sorry to interrupt, but one question that comes to mind with this. So, since the state has had, or the county has had more of the, does the county actually come in and support development or growth or these things?
no,
Is that no?
no,
Okay.
because we are a full service city. That's exactly
Yeah.
why that it doesn't make sense, right?
Yeah.
We're a
Yeah.
full service city, meaning that we have our own police, own fire,
Uh-huh.
our
Yeah.
own solid waste, our own uh, streets department. Anything in the city is all done in house. So we don't really have county facilities or county
Mm-hmm.
services anymore. Really, what we use the county for is for the jail,
Uh-huh.
for the county hospital, and district attorney. Those are probably some of your major ones. But when it comes to particularly just for the city of Manteca, there's really no. We don't use the sheriff.
Right.
So that's one of our things is that what were we getting back for our 80%? Maybe
Right.
back in
Yeah.
the days it wasn't a big deal, Raj, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
we didn't have a lot of development. But if you think
Yeah.
about the last 20 plus years,
Mm-hmm.
there's been a lot of development in South County and especially in Manteca.
Mm-hmm.
And so now it is a big deal because we have now, our growth patterns are, we're one of the fastest growing cities. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of money that's been going, unfortunately, has been going to the county.
Right. Okay.
So, and same thing with the CFDs, the Belarus, we unfortunately never charged those into those developments. So the good thing is that I have implemented now a new CFD that also incorporates police, fire, and streets tacked onto the parks and streetlights.
Okay.
So again, that's great, but I can't go back. So anything that's
Right.
already developed and built, I can't go and change theirs unless they would want to pay extra, which nobody will agree to.
But
So
it does carve out or separate out those away from services and other needs of the city
yeah,
uh,
so any
from
future
future.
development now
Right.
will not only be on a 60-40 split, but they also
Uh-huh.
have these CFDs that will be paying for those extra expenses for the city due to those developments coming
Right.
in.
Right. Okay.
And then also there's going to be an allocated account for streets. So those neighborhoods or growth will have a separate account for their street maintenance. So
Hmm.
I can already see it 10, 15, 20 years from now, those neighborhood streets will be getting redone and people will be complaining saying, why is their street getting redone? Well, they're paying
Hmm.
for it. That's why.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that if we would have done that for a long time, I wouldn't have probably needed the money to fix all these streets that we're looking at now
Right.
because they're all accounted for in those fees. So
Yeah.
those are another thing that really have transitioned and changed.
Hmm.
So what you're seeing with that is that I think it'll be great. When there's a mayor sitting here 10, 20 years from now, he's going to say, wow, we got all this money, everything's going, streets look great, and we have enough funding for growth for police, fire. But so now the issue is, what do I do in this in between time, between
Hmm.
uh, when those all are going to kick in? Because not only does developments have to be approved, they have to be built, and then people
Hmm.
have to live in there, and then they have to pay those taxes, and that's when the city would get money, right?
Right.
So
Right.
it's not going to happen overnight.
Hmm.
And then the other thing I also have changed with that whole development aspect is that one of the things, unfortunately, we've done in the past is we've allowed development to phase in infrastructure.
Hmm.
So where they would build a few hundred houses, then put in more streets and roads, then build more houses, then put in more streets and roads. And then there's times where, COVID happens or there's a recession and then things don't get built because they're not selling houses that quickly. So moving forward, what we also have done now is that any of our developments that we have approved in this council, they're not allowed to build any housing vertical, anything going vertical
Hmm.
until all the infrastructure is in.
Okay.
So that's
That's
also going to
good.
be great for our city because all the infrastructure is going to get in. But the problem again with that is that means they can't build any houses either yet. So you're going to see delays in getting the property tax and getting those CFDs that we talked about.
Yeah, it's a tricky situation. I can completely appreciate that because you have to keep the tax revenue ahead of the building and the new things coming in, but you don't want to increase too much of the population load that infrastructure is impacted.
Correct.
Yeah,
So
it's yeah.
so what's interesting is that there's a map up there that you'll see where a lot of you see all this development happening all around town, but a lot of those
Mhm.
have been approved decades ago.
Right.
So this current council, since I've been mayor, we've only approved 4 developments. The rest are all been pre-approved before. And
Yeah.
the great thing about the 4 that we have approved, none of them you've seen them building houses because, like we said earlier, they can't build houses until they do all the
Mhm.
infrastructure work. But the good thing about all those 4 developments, they're on that new 60-40 split. They're with the new CFDs, and they're all putting in all the infrastructure. So those are all wins once they get done. But unfortunately, people see a lot of the development that's already been building, and they think, "Man, what's going on? They're going crazy building everywhere." Unfortunately,
Mm.
those are already approved, and I can't go backwards and decline those at this point. Those contracts are already signed and sealed.
But the new ideas or the new development that you just discussed earlier, they will be coming in as early as starting maybe next year and so. So that activity will hopefully be visible as well.
Correct. They'll start seeing those, and what they're going to see actually, and I've already had comments. We're building that project. They're building on Yosemite Squares on Austin Road, and
Uh-huh.
they've seen people kind of cleared it up, and then they said they're gone. What happened? Did they back out? No, it's because right now they're getting all the right of way acquisitions because they need to build all the streets before
Mhm.
they can build any houses. So a lot
Right.
of people are going to see a lot of these projects where they feel like they started and haven't done anything. It's because we're requiring those infrastructure first
Mhm.
before they can build.
Right.
So it will take time, but on the long run, it will be more sustainable for our city.
Yeah, but this point that you made, I wasn't aware of either. I think it's a really important point, and I know you've been going around and talking at different places. But this distinction between development that is already on track with that 80-20 split, that cannot be changed. I wasn't aware of that either. So I think that this distinction is really important for people to understand that there is just future development is going to be uh, done in a different way.
Correct, correct.
So, yeah,
Yeah, and
yeah.
that's really, I mean, if you look at our general fund revenues, that's really the next important part. You'll see the differences. If you look at that chart that you see there with
Hmm.
the bar graph
Yeah,
there, and you'll see that the pie chart.
pie chart. Yeah.
You'll see kind of where our income comes from,
Hmm.
and that's kind of part of my issue, right? That I talked about earlier is that we've been so reliant on residential growth. If you look at that, 39% of our total revenue is property taxes,
Yeah.
and that 39% represents $28 million. But that's at
Hmm.
80-20. So can you
Right.
imagine if even half of that was at 60-40 at that time,
Hmm.
how much
Yeah.
more money we would have right now?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then also looking at that chart, you can see a big chunk of it is property taxes, which means that we've been reliant on property taxes.
Hmm.
And the blue on there, which is the sales tax, that's the part where I want to grow, meaning that bring in more businesses, bring in more things, reasons for you to spend your money in Manteca, which is only 26%. And it may seem, always say, oh, the city has a lot of money, there's a lot of stuff going in. But if you think about it, the bulk of it is property tax and sales tax of that whole revenue
Hmm.
generation for our general fund. And even the property tax, $28 million sounds like a lot of money. Our current police revenue expense just for the police department is $28 million.
Yeah.
So the
Yeah.
property tax revenue is gone.
Yeah, and you were saying that's yeah, it's but so I'm just wondering how does that compare to other local cities? Manteca is like right now maybe 93,000 people. Lathrop is 37,000. Lathrop is growing even faster than Manteca in some ways.
Yeah.
And property taxes in Lathrop, I think currently are like 8.75. Do you want to compare? Like, are there other
That's sales
things?
tax. Yeah. So
The
I'll
sales tax,
cover
yeah.
that here shortly. We'll talk about it.
Okay.
If you kind of go to the next one where I love this slide, it's about the pennies.
Yeah.
So people always talk about I pay my taxes. There are a lot of taxes in California. I'm not paying any more. And so our
Hmm.
current sales tax in the city of Manteca is 8.25,
Yeah.
8.25. But if you look at that chart, almost 4 cents of it goes to the state, and almost
Mhm.
3 cents of it goes to the county. So the city of Manteca only gets a penny out
Yeah.
of that eight and a
Right.
quarter. So yeah, you do pay a lot, but we don't get it in the city of Manteca.
Hmm.
And then we do also get another half a cent, and that's that Measure M. And so that's
Yeah.
one of the other things I've seen out there. People say, "Well, you guys have been constantly putting taxes on," and actually we have not. That Measure M half a cent sales tax. The last time we passed a tax measure in the city of Manteca was 2006.
Hmm.
So almost 20 years.
Yeah.
So it's been a while. And that half cent today currently funds 20 police officers and 18
Hmm.
firefighters. And so it has been done right. But what we have left, which is the previous slide where we talked about the sales tax, which is 19
Hmm.
million, that's what that penny brings in. That's what that
Right.
19 million is. We only get a penny. So what you'll see is that I don't know if you know this, but the minimum sales tax in the state of California is 7.25.
Hmm.
The maximum is 10.25.
Yeah.
So what you will see is other cities around us and others have increased taxes and local taxes.
Mm-hmm.
And what happens with that is when you have those local taxes, they go into the city's pile, the city's column. When the states may come and say, we're going to pass some kind of tax, say for the high speed rail, the
Mm-hmm.
city of Manteca sale tax may go from 8.25. Say they pass another half cent, it may go from 8.25 to 8.75, and you may think, oh yeah, the city is getting more money, but no, the other half cent is going to go into the state's column, and
Right.
so it's going to
Yeah.
stay there. It's not going to come to the city. This you might be paying 8.75, but the city's still only going to get a penny. And same thing
Right.
if the county passes something, it will go into their individual buckets. The city will only get this. So if you pass something locally, it will come into our bucket, and it will
Mm-hmm.
not be taken by the state or the county. And that's another very important distinction.
Yeah. I mean, so increasing taxes is never popular. Nobody wants to pay more taxes, but I think you're laying out the state of the city and all the needs and things, and it's really what also you are laying out here is the piece of the pie that actually gets to the city versus that goes to the county and the state. So to increase that piece of the pie and stay ahead of the development needs is kind of what you're saying, what is the case that you're making.
Right. And I'm saying also is that how do we keep that money here instead of
Yeah.
going back to the state or the county, is that we have to
Hmm.
pass it here and not let them do it there. And then the
Yeah.
next chart, I think, is what you were talking about earlier, where it's a really good comparison of what our sales tax is, which is 8.25, to some of our neighboring cities. So if you look on that chart, you see that Lake is 8.75. Tracy's 8.25. I'll get that to you in a little bit later here right now. But
Yeah.
if you look at over the hill, Livermore, Dublin, Pleasanton, they're all at that 10.25. So they're at the
Yeah.
maximum currently. But what they've done is they've passed local taxes.
Hmm.
So remember where we were talking about the city of Manteca getting that penny?
Yeah. Yeah.
Those cities are getting 3 to 4 cents because they've passed local ones for their city. The state's
Hmm.
just getting what they're supposed to get. They're getting more of that 10.25 at the city level. And that's why you're seeing those amenities and different standard of quality of life there in those cities compared to ours.
Yeah,
Um,
and with Measure Q, I think the proposal was to or is to change from 8.25 to 9, right?
Yeah, so it's a 3/4 cent
Three
sales
quarters cent.
tax.
Yeah.
And so it looks like it might be a lot, but if you look even on that chart, a lot of our neighboring cities are already higher.
Uh-huh.
Stockton is at 9%, Modesto is 8.9. So, a lot of individuals have told me, if you raise the taxes, I'm just going to go shop in our neighboring city. Well, it's not much cheaper, if not more, at our neighboring cities. And on top of that, the neighboring cities, you're still going to have to, fill up your car with gas and drive to the neighboring city.
Well, also, I think as citizens of Manteca, I mean, I don't know, I don't want to uh, change people's minds whether they want to vote for increasing or not increasing. But what you're doing is laying out the current status. And but as people who live in the city of Manteca and they want to see improvements and developments, I think putting their money into the city is only more beneficial to themselves than going somewhere else and
Yeah,
giving it to
because
another
I
city.
I feel the accountability side is that you know where to find me. I live in the city, work in the city. You know where your council members are. How are you going to find the state officials and the federal officials? At least you'll know where your money is going. You'll be able to ask. You had asked earlier, about on that chart. You'll see underneath. I talk about per capita, and
Hmm.
you see per capita what citizens spend in Manteca into our general fund to provide services. And if you look at ours compared to any of the other cities, we are actually the lowest per capita
Hmm.
that we spend, that we basically give to the city of Manteca for services in the city of Manteca. So even with the Measure Q expense extra, we will still be the lowest per capita. So a lot of people say we pay too much taxes. Actually, you've been getting a pretty good deal in Manteca for a while, but that unfortunately has come at a cost. And some of those are what we have seen around town, and some of the things that have not been updated in a long time.
Hmm.
But one of the other big things on there, Raj, that you'll see is that Manteca and Tracy, I told you I would talk about this earlier. Manteca and Tracy have the same sales tax, 8.25.
Hmm. Yep.
But Manteca only has about a $45 million budget and that they get, and Tracy gets $98 million. So
Hmm.
over double.
Yeah.
A lot of people may ask, why is Tracy double? They're only about 7,000 more people than us. They have
Hmm.
about the same stuff industry wise. So, a lot of people may wonder, why do they have so much more money? Their sales tax is the same as ours too. So, you any guesses, Raj, on your side?
I would say probably the split, county, and I don't know.
No,
I'm just
because that's
guessing.
a property tax split.
That's a
So
property tax only, so
this is
not sales
sales
tax.
tax.
So that means the amount of spending that people are doing is more in Tracy than in Manteca.
Actually,
Yeah.
kind of, but not true
Yeah.
because there's not
Okay.
there not that many more people there compared to
Okay.
us
Right.
to allow to have double
No, I
the.
mean what I meant was like people from other surrounding cities going
Sure,
there and
yeah.
spending. Yeah.
Well, you're kind of true on that part, but the real answer is internet sales.
Oh.
So
Okay.
there is a law, and I don't know if you're familiar with this, but there is a law that says if a facility is owned, say like by Amazon,
Uh-huh.
then when you order something from that facility, the sales tax actually goes to the city where the facility is.
Oh.
And if the facility is leased, say
Hmm.
by Amazon, then if you order something, then the sales tax goes to the city where the product goes.
Oh.
So 4 to
Okay.
5 years ago,
Yeah.
the big facility that Tracy has,
Hmm.
Amazon bought it.
Okay.
So
I
now
see.
all of the packages that you're ordering
Wow.
on Amazon in this county, in this area, and
Hmm.
in this city, all their sales tax goes to Tracy.
Okay. That in itself is quite a significant chunk, I can imagine, because of
Yeah, look at
that
it.
little.
it is
Yeah.
it is 30 plus $1 million
But we have Amazon here as well, don't we?
at least.
Oh, it's leased. Oh, I see. That's the difference. So
That's the
Tracy,
difference,
they
and
own
that is
it,
state
and
law that they have
I see.
unfortunately been able to pass back when.
Okay.
And and so yeah, one of the goals is to try to get that state law changed. But just like I'm pushing to get it changed, you'll have cities like Tracy there saying, no, 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 leave it the same.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I see.
that's another
Okay.
big chunk of the reason why, you know, unfortunately, please buy local, but we also know that buying patterns are changing,
Hmm.
and it's way too convenient to press that button on your computer or your own phone and order instead of going to your local store. So that's one of the other reasons why you see that big difference between Manteca and Tracy.
Well, the interesting aspect of this is that it does not make any difference to Amazon like companies themselves, other than that they have to either buy, which they have to put in more money. But there, if if they're a company that is really coming into a city, you I think you can make a case that they should buy so that it helps the city that they're housed in.
Yeah, so that's one of the
So yeah,
things that I am looking at. If you look at,
yeah.
remember originally when we were talking about the general plan and
Hmm.
redoing a lot of the zoning up in the north and making it industrial,
Yeah.
the reason behind that is that if we can have the industrial land up there on a dedicated truck route, we can help entice the Amazons of the world to come into Manteca and buy
Uh-huh.
a facility or build a facility here. So, which could probably happen sooner than trying to get the state law changed,
Right.
and then start capturing some of the tax revenue here in Manteca.
Uh-huh. No,
That's why the other
absolutely.
transition that you're seeing, it's all
Yeah.
coming together, isn't it?
Yeah, no, there are many things that I did not know. So thanks for bringing those up. So yeah,
So
that's
that's really
yeah,
a big key factor, and
uh,
so people say, and this is not. It's unfortunately as this is a lot of other cities are facing this because they're seeing declines in sales tax revenue because people are habits are changing and going online. Um,
yeah. I mean, but the challenge is because, like I mentioned earlier, people just don't want to pay more tax, and I think making a case and maybe what we can do is if there's a link that shows how the increased sales tax money will be spent, we can put it below the podcast. We can
Yeah,
put a
no,
link
definitely.
to.
We can do that.
Yeah,
I also, it's kind of in the slides that we've covered also. Um, the
right.
other part, so the next slide basically is saying, where's your sales tax going to go? And
Okay.
and that's literally the first thing is going to go to roads and infrastructure. There's a lot
Right.
of roads that we need to build throughout this community, um, and I need money to do it. I will
Mm,
share that in the next couple slides. You'll see why we don't have money for roads either, other than already talking about the property tax and the sales tax. There's actually another reason. Public
mm,
safety, again, we need more
mm,
officers. We need a new police station. Unfortunately, our police station is very old. 1975, when we were a city of 18,000. Now we're 93,000.
mhm,
Um, now, that station, unfortunately, if they would have built it 20 plus years ago, it was about 25 million. Now the price
mhm.
tag on that new station is 56 million. So the longer we
Yeah.
keep on waiting, it keeps on going up.
Yeah.
Quality of life. So this is the parks, public
Mhm.
facilities, our pool. City pool was built in 1965. Still the same pool.
Mhm.
So we need one really bad.
Yeah.
Then also amenities within our parks and different things that are really badly needed. We've talked about our animal shelter with the growth. Unfortunately, our animal shelter is also small.
Mhm.
So all of those are infrastructure costs. Some of them that are one-time costs. But what you see in this is that you see I need money for a variety of different things. It's not just for one thing. Um, Streets is the other big thing that I talked about earlier. If you look at that next slide, you'll be seeing that you kind of see that we kind of do a grading system for our streets that kind of tells you what condition they are.
Mhm.
So it's called a PCI, Pavement Condition Index, and it goes from green to red. And you'll see a lot of our streets, unfortunately, if you see the next map, where they're orange,
Yeah.
and that tells you they're not in the greatest conditions. But
Yeah.
one
And
of the
yeah.
issues is that the city only receives annually from SB1 and gas tax $5 million, and to keep the streets the way they are today, it costs us anywhere from $4 to $7 million just to keep them the way they
Just
are.
to maintain them. Yeah.
Maintain them,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
So if you want them better, it's $10 to $15 million. So this is why your streets look the way they do. This is why what we do every year is that we use, say, $2-3 million to fix some streets, and then we bank the rest. Then we go next year and we use, you know, $4 again, bank the rest, and we do this for several years until we have enough money to do a neighborhood. But by the time we're done, ready to do that neighborhood, the other neighborhood has also gotten worse.
Well, also it's part of the infrastructure with the growth. The infrastructure we're talking
Because
about.
we
So
didn't
as
charge a lot of those
right.
developments for those
Mm,
growth fees back then, I
yeah.
don't have the funding to help all those. If we would have put those in place that we talked about earlier, 20 plus years ago, then I wouldn't need the money to do those neighborhoods. I can
Mm,
use that money to do our major thoroughfares and some
mm,
of our older neighborhoods. So it kind
right.
of, unfortunately, is a catch 22 of what happens
Yeah.
with that. Um, so then there's the other side. I've also heard a lot of complaints about, hey, well, Gary, you keep on bringing, which they think I'm personally bringing them in, but gas stations all over town. And one of the things is we are a growing community, and with that also, gas sells because there's a lot of commuters in our town. But then also you got to remember the money that we get for our streets comes from gas tax. So if you have gas stations in the community, then we will get more gas tax. So, do you want streets built or not built? if
One thing is that Manteca is sort of in a corridor of
Yeah,
people going from the Bay Area to Central Valley and trucks, like you were talking about truck traffic. So as long as there are enough gas stations and not too many, or not too not
well,
enough.
yeah, and I don't know if I can make that decision of when's too
Yeah.
many, because I think the economics and the business-minded people that want to spend all that money to build a gas station can decide when there's too
Right.
many.
It's
Because if
yeah.
they believe there's enough business there for them to spend $10 million on a
Mhm.
facility, then obviously, they've done their market
Right.
analysis to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's the many things to consider in this.
Right. So you'll
Yeah.
go to the one chart that I have right now, which kind of talks about the list of funding priorities. This slide
Hmm.
23. It kind of talks about, okay, so what we're proposing is a 3/4 cent sales tax going from 8.25% to 9%. What we would use the money for, it's road repair, traffic congestion, a police station, a fire station, hopefully a community pool at one time, animal shelter expansion. We're also looking at for local business support, youth and senior programs, park maintenances. One of the other things I don't think you know this, but a lot of our newer parks, um, like I talked about earlier, those CFDs that are for park
Hmm.
maintenances have those CFDs. But a lot of
Okay.
our older neighborhoods don't have even the
Mm.
CFDs for park maintenance. So those neighborhoods are not paying anything into park maintenance. So those maintenances are done through just our general fund.
Because you said the previous CFTs were for the new ones park maintenance and street lights, right?
The previous ones were for
Yeah.
park maintenance and street
Park
lights,
maintenance.
but if you go to the old neighborhoods in Manteca that are say 40 plus years old, they don't
Uh-huh.
have any.
Okay.
So
That's
there's
even
no
before.
CFDs at all.
I see. Okay.
So then the city
Yeah.
basically has to eat that
Yeah.
expense from general fund to pay for it.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
you
Yeah.
have a tier of Manteca that has none, then you have a tier of Manteca that just has parks and streetlights, and then you
Mhm.
will have new Manteca that will have parks, streetlights, police, fire, and
Police
streets.
fire and that. So kind of going circle backing to the district idea. I think having council members from the regions and they getting input from their citizens to which streets where the money should be. I think that kind of ties in with that distribution as well.
Correct. Yeah, no, and that's part of that, even looking at that pavement condition index that we
Yeah.
do, the map, it kind of shows you where the streets are that need help, streets that don't need, streets that we've done, that are newer. But it's going to help probably better allocate
Hmm.
funding, but also understand that everybody's going to have to kind of pay into this. It can't
Hmm.
just be new people moving in paying for everything in Manteca
Hmm.
because the older neighborhoods are going to still have to pitch in because they're also getting the benefits.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so with the sales tax, the other thing we really did is also put a sunset.
Hmm.
So it has a 20-year sunset, and I want to kind of explain why we came up with that. The one thing was the 20-year sunset is that it goes away. So it will automatically go away unless the citizens actually vote to keep it. So
I
if they
see.
don't
Okay.
vote to keep it, it goes away after 20
Hmm.
years. And the idea behind that is that everything we've talked about so far, the 60/40 split, the CFDs, bringing in all of the commercial and the economic development side, if we do all that right, I don't believe we're going to need this tax in 20 years because all that stuff will now have actually happen. All the development will happen. All the people will be actually paying those things. So I need this tax to hold me in that middle time that we were talking about earlier. And then the other big thing with it is, I don't know if you remember last time we had talked about Great Wolf Lodge.
Hmm.
Great Wolf Lodge, we did a tax sharing agreement with them.
Hmm.
And on that agreement, 20 years is left. So
Okay.
in 20 years, that agreement goes away, and we will start getting 100% of their
Okay.
transient occupancy tax also. So
Okay.
my belief is with all the other things that I've told you, plus this, um, that will help supplement this tax in the future, and you will not need it no longer. And that was kind of the vision, the dream of why this tax is basically to get some of these things done now. The other big thing with it is being a 20-year tax, we can actually bond against it.
Hmm.
And I would like to bond against is that way I can get the money today to build that police station now, build the fire station now before it keeps on going up in price. And basically, part of those funding is already going to get allocated to the bonds proceeds
Hmm.
that need to be paid. But that makes it end up where we end up getting those facilities sooner than later. So that's
Right.
kind of the pitch of why we thought about what we did and why we're doing it.
Okay. So has that happened? Have other cities tried sunset limitations and they actually went
Not
down in tax?
we
Or
had done one before. So
okay,
I believe in 2012 our sales tax used to be higher and it
okay,
dropped off,
okay.
and that's when
Yeah.
it came back down. So it has happened in other cities. Um, the I'm just trying to kind of give you the reason of why I think even if it goes away, we'll be fine,
Hmm.
because I
Right.
think we are going to set up all of the other things that we talked about, and it's just this middle period in between all of that getting implemented and actually the funding coming in, and
Hmm.
then taking care of our needs today instead of just passing it and kicking it down the road, unfortunately, which has been done in the past. And I get it. People don't like taxes, and politically it's probably not a good thing to talk about, because and that's probably why it hasn't been talked about in the past, because people are afraid that if you talk about that, it's probably not a good idea because you probably will not get reelected.
Well,
um,
I mean, the only way you can talk about it is by doing a lot of homework
yeah.
and building a case for it, which is why we thought we should do this as well, because I wanted to understand myself, and hopefully by this podcast we can share all the details that you can provide for people to be exposed to and learn things that are not often known or talked about. Like, I learned a lot today. You taught me a lot about how funds are transferred, how taxes work, for example, with big companies like Amazon owning or leasing. I
Yep.
wasn't aware of any of those things. So I think this kind of education is important for a measure that seems a little bit difficult, and nobody wants to pay more. We've been through kind of inflation, so people have been already stretched and
Right.
stressed, and it's tough. But these are just kind of where we are left now. We are in a city that
Well,
is growing.
and
Yeah,
I think one of the things you see is that there's options, right? You can do a sales tax measure, or you can do a property tax, or a
yeah.
parcel tax, or fees. But my thought process was that if we do any of those others, those would be only people that live in Manteca paying
Mhm.
it,
Yeah,
right? But with the sales tax, as we continue to increase things for people to come and shop here, tourism to come, when we bring those things, those people will also be paying that sales
right.
tax. That will help the city without having us paying it. And then honestly, I feel like it may seem like a lot, but after every $1,000, it's literally $7. So um, do you really look at when you go to Livermore outlets? Do you really look at the sales tax and say, "I'm not going to buy this item"? Um, it
Yeah,
kind of
but
gets
human human awareness is such that when they don't pay attention to something, it doesn't really come up.
correct,
But
correct.
now, because it is an issue and it's being discussed, it has come up. So it's
Right, and
yeah,
talking about the impacts, you think that it's a
yeah.
major impact, but I think one of the other things that people may not realize is that a lot of things that, because this has been said to me before too, well, this is going to affect the people that are low income or in need.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of the things that we need are not taxed. So,
Mm-hmm.
your food, your groceries, the stuff like that, or medicine or medical, even for our seniors, or real estate, or even personal services, none of those things have taxes on them.
Yeah.
So I really feel a lot of your needs do not have a sales tax. It's a lot of your wants.
Yeah, no, it's just true. The problem has been that because of inflation, those needed things have gone up in price as well, even though there's no tax. But as citizens of Manteca, and looking forward to what changes we want, and I think what I appreciate about all of this, Gary, is that the effort that you put in, like today, we may post this in two parts because it's been like over an hour, but but it's a really clear description of where things are, what things are changing. And one thing that comes to my mind, at least, is that you've been working hard. That's one thing I can say from the presentation, that there's been a lot of hard work that's gone into this.
All right.
And
Yeah,
and the
and I
plan.
think
Yeah.
you said it right there. Where we basically said that it's going to be up to the people, and they have to figure out what kind of Manteca future they want. If they're happy with the way things are and they're good with the way it's going, and just stay like that, then yes, no, don't vote for it. But if you want a better Manteca, if you want some of those extra amenities, you want better public safety, you want more of your roads fixed, then that's going to unfortunately take funding, and
Mhm.
you are in control of the future of our city. And
Mhm.
either way, if you whatever you decide, we will have to take and go with. But I'm trying to give you a clear picture of where we are at today in our city and what I have to work with. So
Yeah.
the decision is obviously up to the people and me also, because I also live and vote in the city. But I think the other thing what really is important I want to hit on is that there's always this question about transparency and accountability,
Mhm.
and and this idea of why a general tax and not a civic tax.
Mhm.
So civic tax was what Measure M was, where it was allocated to police and fire. The
Mhm.
reason it's a general tax is because of the reasons we kind of talked about, is that I don't need the money just for one thing. We need it for streets, we need it for buildings, we need it for more police, fire. So there's various things, and then maybe after we're done with one of those facilities, now I can have need to have some of easiness to move it to something else that the city needs.
Mhm.
So, if we were to do civic taxes, then I would probably need to do two or three different civic taxes for each one of those. And I really feel people are not going to vote for three or four different tax measures.
Yeah, I
In this,
mean, the general tax makes sense. It gives you more flexibility in allocating the funds as the need arises.
but then
Uh,
the other side of that, they
yeah.
feel that because it's in the general tax, then it's going to just become this slush fund, or this fund where anybody can do whatever they want with it. But then my idea with that is that we are actually going to create a 5-member public oversight committee, similar to what
Okay.
we've done with Measure M,
Hmm.
where each council member from each district will appoint an individual from their district, and then I get to appoint one from the city. And this public oversight committee will actually monitor the expenses, and they will recommend a spending plan to the city council and make sure the tax money is actually going to things that we said it was going to go to when originally it was passed. So,
Yeah,
and then
if
there's
that
an
can be
outside
made,
audit.
yeah, and that can be made more transparent, maybe even like a simple website, or like you
Yep.
and those members talking to the community.
No,
I
it's
think
a public
transparency is
meeting.
important.
So it
A
will be a
public meeting.
public
Okay.
meeting where
Yeah.
it will be recorded, but you can also
Yeah.
go and ask questions
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
go there. So it's not going to be something that's done behind closed doors.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
this is going to be a public meeting, just like one of our council meetings,
Hmm.
and then you'll have an outside audit done
Hmm.
annually, where reports will all be available publicly.
Yeah.
The other side of it also is that I've heard this, where say, hey Gary, you're doing a good job, your council's doing a good job. What about future council members? What if they start using it for other
Hmm.
things? Well, my response to that is that U.S. citizens also have this powerful thing called a vote, and if those individuals are not doing what you like for them to, you vote them out.
Well, yeah. that, there are many questions about that aspect of but that is an important and a good question as well. But I think the public oversee committee will also, once they are on a track and they're successful tracks, that can kind of make sure that even if the council members or things change, things are already in motion, and if they're being successful, like, yeah, I mean,
Well, yeah, because one of the things will be is that with what I had talked about earlier, is that a lot of this money will get allocated because we're going to bond against it.
Mhm.
So if
Right.
it's bonded against, that means you got to make those payments.
Right.
So the $10 to $13 million we're going to make from this tax, a lot of it's already going to get allocated to those proceeds. So
Mhm.
there's not going to be a lot of money left for future council members
Right.
to use
Yeah.
for whatever they want.
Yeah. Yeah. True. Wow. Okay. Well, thanks. That was a lot of information and very interesting. I mean, I am excited about the changes that you shared and the developments and all the exciting things that are coming to the city. and I guess somebody has to pay for that. So
I'm doing my
uh,
part, and
yeah,
I'm trying to make sure development is paying its ways currently.
yeah,
But at the same time, I have to make sure development is paying. But then, what do I do with my current
hmm,
issues right now? And
yeah,
that's where I think we've think long and hard, and we've made sure our books are in order, audits are done, everything is complete. Where before we start going out there and saying we're going to ask for a tax measure, it
mm,
was not a light decision, but I think we've put in a lot of work and made changes for the future of the city before we suddenly start talking about a tax measure.
yeah, yeah.
So
No, it's good.
I've also
Yeah,
sent you the link to our site where they can get a lot of this information for
great.
the
Okay.
Measure Q. And so I recommend if you want to add that in and give
Yes, we'll.
it the
Yeah,
opportunity to look through that information.
yeah. Great, Gary. Thank you so much for sharing all of these details. And thank you for coming on to TerreScience. And hopefully, this will educate people about not just whether to raise tax or not, but how a city works. I learned a lot about that because many of these things are not discussed publicly as much. So I appreciate that aspect as well. So thank you so much for joining us. Would you like to add anything else before
No,
we?
thank you.
Yeah,
I just love the opportunity that you always do to get on these podcasts, and I hope that we continue doing these and always try to bring some different topics, and we continue educating our public on different things that are make up our community.
absolutely. Thank you again. So, if you live in the city of Manteca and are interested of any of these topics and how Manteca is growing, and wanted to learn more, you can always contact the council members and even Gary. He's always responsive. I don't know how much he has time to do other things. He's always answering all the questions on Facebook. I've seen that myself. So he answers almost every single question. So you can. It's easy to reach him. He's accessible that way, and that's why I like also communicating with him, because he's very clear about how things are and how they're changing. So thank you, Gary. And don't forget, to everyone who's listening and watching, don't forget to like the podcast TerreScience. We have broad range of topics, including mental health, food, nutrition, and we have guests like Gary. So thank you again, Gary, and good to have you on the podcast. Thanks.
Thank you.
Don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel.